Haramaya Haramaya Te whānau, and welcome to the first ever episode of Bright Hairy News for 2025. And look, I have with me a Wookie that did turn up, and
I'm here.
A surprise detective, Rogernomics.
Hello. I don't have much of a beard to stroke, unfortunately.
Oh, see, we
Please
actually
show
finally have beards on the Friday, so people will be happy because we always get comments about the lack of beards. So for once,
I don't make the cut for some people though, so it's too short.
Okay, compared to the beard that I have to pluck due to my PCOS, you're fine. Like, you're fine. How have you guys been anyway, Chewie? How's your holiday since this is your first episode?
It has been great to have my evenings. I haven't had much of a holiday as such because I've been working through, but it's just been nice to be able to do stuff in the weekends. I went up to Wanaka to see the She-Huds.
Part of their final
film up there. Yes. That was cool. If you remember from when we had John Toogood on the show, he guilt tripped me into buying a ticket. I swear. But that was really cool. I've followed that band since my late teens, and that show was probably as good as I've ever seen them.
Oh wow!
So it was amazing. If you're in Christchurch, I think they're going into final sales for their show in Christchurch in March. Awesome. I don't know how the rest of the tour is going. I think they're heading over to Australia, but yeah, if you can, go. Also, my partner went to see her family over in Australia, and she came back with this.
I saw that on her story, actually. I was wondering how much peas it actually fits in it.
Well, I wondered that. I'm going to do this, but when I open it does the things. I think it takes entire packets of peas.
Oh, so you can actually just slot the whole packet.
You just put a whole bunch of peas in there. But this is amazing. This is
beautiful.
There's this.
Your wife wins Christmas gifts from her holiday.
Phenomenal.
I love that. What about you, Rogers? Anything fun for you over the holidays?
No, I work through most of it, but
it's
good pay, so I don't care.
Absolutely,
so that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just I was literally just in Central Otago as well last week, so nice. We might have run into each other, Chewie, not knowing it. Yeah, it was lovely weather back there, and my last week's just been working for this.
Oh yes, doing your top secret detective work. Yes.
Yeah, doing my secret work. Yes.
I love that. Well, I hope everyone in the chat's been having a good week. We're now finally at Friday, which means the memes will be coming. The memes are coming. But since it is Chewie's first show back, and he has got a bit of a story for us, did we want to maybe pop your story up and have a look at some of that? I'll have a look through the.
Okay, so I mean,
nice.
we started this story earlier in the week. Obviously, lots of people have seen it. Govt was being accused of shoplifting, but in a very weird sort of way. But that has taken nothing away from the headline that the Herald and other news outlets have been happy to bandy about. That it was an accusation of shoplifting. And on the first pass of the story, it was weird straight out of the get-go. But it was the headline that everybody grabbed in. But once you jump into the story, you find out she was putting items in her trolley and a tote bag, hadn't got to the checkouts before someone came and asked her to leave. Like by anybody's definition, not shoplifting. So where the fuck did this story come from?
Yes.
Now, I basically do that all the time at the supermarket too. Like
I see people do it all the time.
Go to the checkout.
If this is the description of shoplifting, I do it every week. So yeah, like there's layers, like a shitty onion. There's always layers. Like Maybe it was a case that Golriz's images is in the Aura anti-shoplifting system, which is a facial recognition system. That's super yuck. Maybe it was an overzealous employee that went, I know she's a shoplifter because it's been in the news, so I'm going to go and fucking turf her out. She hadn't done anything wrong. You haven't done anything wrong until you've walked past the checkouts without paying. So
yeah, I would almost guarantee it's one of those facial recognition systems. There was a report, I think 2 months ago, that Hackensack was starting to roll those out.
There was someone at Rotorua that we discussed. I might have been just before Christmas holiday, where a woman at Rotorua had that issue too. So people were already not sure about it to begin with, and we're already seeing that. Yeah, it's people called it. They knew that this was going to happen.
So what's happened now? Why am I talking about the story? Because this is old news. This is a couple of days old now. Well, more has come out. So the big question of where did this story come from? Was it leaked by someone that worked for foodstuffs? Was it foodstuffs going to the papers or not? No. It turns out that it's Leo Malloy is the person that has leaked this to the press in his usual shit-fuck scumbag way. The revelation of a new alleged shoplifting incident came from Auckland restaurateur Leo Malloy and led to a fresh wave of online abuse against the former MP. That's the other thing. Golriz is now a private citizen. There is no need for this to happen. And he's done this in a way, he said in subsequent social media posts after the claim was confirmed, this comes as no surprise to us. Let's just leave it there because I'm worried about her mental health.
Yeah,
Fuck you, Leo Malloy.
Disgusting. Can't.
I am now just purely living for the day that a discarded plastic bag blown by the wind tangles around him and drags him out to sea.
This is like if the... Sorry.
This is just like, it's beyond the pale. He's not involved in any politics anymore officially. He's having a go at a private person, a private citizen who has had very public challenges that have cost her pretty much everything. And he set off another absolutely vicious right-wing dog pile. Is he not going to be happy until she decides to just fucking take herself out of the picture? That would be my concern at this point.
Exactly.
And it's just beyond the pale that no news organization that was happy to gleefully run with those headlines over the past couple of days didn't do any more digging and see the story for what it was. A personal vendetta against a prominent left-wing figure.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, and everybody involved in it should hang their fucking head.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we've got comments in here already. I mean, they should be ashamed because it's disgusting. Like the amount of unnecessary hate that Golriz has received, honestly, because she's a woman of color and was a woman of color in Parliament, has been absolutely cooked. And, you know, as this comment here says, Golriz derangement syndrome has been like that. Like the amount of times I still see people...
Derangement for someone who's not in Parliament.
Yeah, and like, I still see people, like the very few times I go on Facebook, I still see people talking about her in comment sections, and it's just, it baffles me that they're just still going after her. It's like, leave the woman alone. She did the thing. You wanted her out. She's out now. Leave her the fuck alone. Like, it's clear that even if there was something going on with, you know, multiple instances of shoplifting or whatever, that's not our business. That is between her doctor, her mental health professionals. Like, that is her business, and people need to stay out of it.
It's like if the tabloids that were like gaslighting, you know, what's her name, face, Lindsay Lohan. If they said they were concerned about her drug use and her health, like,
it's just the amount of times you see concern, like, I mean, Britney Spears was literally under conservatorship for God knows how long because of, concern for mental health. Like it's just bullshit. Like Chewie said, she's a public citizen and he is a businessman who's using this kind of clout, I guess you could call it, and status that he for some fucking reason has, it's just disgusting. And it's just like, I don't know, mate. Are you bored or something? Do you need something to do? Like, go touch grass and stop bullying someone for no fucking reason.
Just continue to be a very short man in a bar on Auckland's waterfront that seems to make you think that your opinion has weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd be quite happy to not hear from Leo Malloy in any sort of any fashion. Like if his mouth disappeared, that'd be great. If the rest of him disappeared, that'd be even better. But yeah, he's not involved in a mayoral race, which is where he got this sort of inflated sense of purpose. Just run your bar, mate. Just hang out with your gross rich mates in your stupid wanky waterfront bar, and just carry on being a gross person. We don't need to hear from you.
Just cares about the people,
don't need to see your personal vendetta.
Chewie, sorry.
Are they that interchangeable, are they?
Yeah, they are kind of.
I don't know if that's a compliment.
No, Pat's invaluable.
Also, I'm seeing here in the comments, apparently his bar is gross anyway, so maybe that's why. Maybe no one's going there.
I can only judge from walking past it. I'm like, oh, we could go into. Oh no, it's that bar. Okay, never mind. Carry on walking. I'm sure it's not my vibe anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure it's for a very specific type of person that's probably outside of our scope of friendship.
Leo Malloy's not. Look, I have a personal vendetta, of course. I once said that he should be stuffed in a sandwich bag and thrown off the Harbour Bridge, and that got my main account banned from Twitter. So, never forget, never forgive.
Honestly, that is fair. That is fair.
So Elon didn't reinstate you when he came in, is that what you're saying?
No, I asked. I was like, since we're bringing back literal neo-Nazis and some of the most toxic accounts at all, can I get my account back? And I was told in no uncertain terms, no, because I had threatened violence upon someone. And I was like, look at the accounts you're bringing back.
Right? Pop kettle.
Like, I'm talking about stuffing a human in a sandwich bag. That is not a credible threat.
No, that's goofy. That's goofy at best.
That's just japes. That's banter.
Exactly. I think bring back Chewie's account. That's what I reckon.
The other part of that story that I found interesting is apparently because this happened at the end of last year when that court case was ongoing. That the police tried to bring that into part of that court case. And I found as like not as a charge, but as like an illustration of ongoing behavior. And it's just like, again, the police should realize that there was no shoplifting. So then why did it come into it? Now, if Leo Malloy had such a hard-on for pursuing public political figures and their travels through the law, why has he not been doing it for someone that we can't name yet? It's almost like it's not on any true sense of justice or fairness. It's almost like it's a really partisan, just shitty thing to do. As you said, it against a brown immigrant woman, refugee woman, on the left, rather than a white man that may be involved in another political party that I can't talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Allegedly.
Soon.
Allegedly. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if anything else continues to go out of that. But I mean, it would be nice, like you say, if people actually picked on the right fucking people for once. Anyway, should we get into our next story?
Yes,
I reckon you'll be interested in this one, Chewie. We've got actually, Detective Rogers is the reason I know about this story. So actually, shout out to Rogers. This broke
my heart.
Yeah, so it turns out right before Christmas, the government scrapped some initiatives that I am very mad about.
Well, back here now, and Labor and the Greens are speaking out against the government's decision to cancel plans for a nationwide food scraps collection scheme. It was made to reduce additional costs on councils, but a recycling advocate has described the move as silly and says it's time to start treating food scraps as a valuable resource. Here's Zane Small.
You ready?
Rata Taifanga is creating soil from food scraps. His non-profit, Etu Rako, takes food waste and transforms it into a resource.
It would actually cost a lot more for businesses to send this to landfill.
He's passionate about it and is disappointed the government has scrapped plans for a nationwide curbside food scrap scheme.
I think it's silly. I think if the government's so keen on mining for resources, why aren't we mining a main resource that is available to every single one of us?
No coincidence that on the week before Christmas, they decided to slip this one under the radar, or at least try to. It'll come as a blow to local councils that want to do the right thing.
It was the previous Labor government that introduced the policy that all councils must provide food scraps.
Labor bad. Labor bad.
Labor bad.
Collections by 2030. But Environment Minister Penny Simmonds has made the decision with Cabinet's approval to not go ahead with that, saying this is to reduce additional costs on councils and to allow more choice around the timing for introducing any new services. She said the government will continue to support councils to introduce recycling and food scraps collections through the Waste Minimisation Fund.
Penny Simmonds.
And I mean, we'll pause there for a second because there's already a lot there. And actually, in that last point, do we want to take some bets on the fact that that fund's probably maybe bugger all? Maybe sweet FA, as some may call it? Because I looked into it, and it is sweet FA. Yeah. So, yeah, this obviously was extreme because I remember obviously Wellington, we had submissions last year, I think it was, or the year before, I honestly cannot remember, on different options that we, they were giving us different size options for, because we were going to convert all of we still have bags, trash bags here in Wellington. So we were going to be converting those to bins and obviously getting the food waste bins, which I was especially excited about. So obviously this is now, I believe, going to affect Wellington. I was looking at some articles that kind of said that Wellington's not really said exactly what's going to be happening with this scrap.
Well, I mean, Dunedin's just gone through the same process after years and years of consultation. That we've gone to a 4-bin system. A red bin for just trash, straight to landfill. Yellow for recycling. Everybody got a little food waste bin for their kitchen, and that goes in your green bin. And then there's glass. And my understanding of all of those food scraps were then going to be turned into compost and used in the city on the parks and gardens and all of that sort of thing. It was like a closed loop. And one of the major benefits there, like when we talk about climate change and stuff like that, is when food waste goes into a landfill, the only thing it does is make methane.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just stuff that just doesn't need to go in there. So for the government to come along and go, oh yeah, no, this is costing councils. Like, a lot of councils have already done this work. They've already spent the money.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're just going to be left with a couple of councils that are now the outliers that don't have anything like that. This is a resource that they have taken away from councils. And exactly. it's that classic thing where they've gone, oh, we want people to have individual choice and that sort of thing. And then when councils make that choice, they go, oh, well, no, not like that, because fucking... making compost is woke. It's just ridiculous. I don't see the point.
And speaking of the Dunedin, sorry, mate.
No, you go.
Speaking of the Dunedin bins, Chewie, just every time I go back there, coming back from Auckland, going to my parents' house, it's confusing to say the least. And a part of this initiative, I believe, was to roll out national consistent bin regulations. Like it was all going to be the same across every region and every council, I believe, was more or less the intention. So if you go to another place, you're not confused about how the bins work. And so that would have been very helpful, especially coming from Auckland firsthand. I've sort of experienced just the system when they were rolling it out, and it's fantastic. The only issue up here is maybe the bin getting a little rotten, but I've heard some tricks to that, like chucking it in the fridge. Fortunately, I don't have fridge space, but so I just deal with the flies. But I just searched up some estimates on savings, and they had an approximate of 4.2 to 4.8 million in tipping fees alone. Were apparently saved for individuals. So that's
because
individual savings.
I obviously I did some research on this a little bit over the last couple of days. Auckland alone, since they implemented their food scraps initiative, managed to divert 9 million kilograms of food scraps in about a year and a half. There's also in Palmerston North, and they did a trial of only 14 streets over 5 months and managed to save 16,000 kilos. As overall, there was about 30 million kilos in Auckland that has been, put through these kinds of schemes. And like Chewie was saying, is that in the reports that I was reading, as of this month, from when they had written it, renewable energy was being fed into the national gas pipeline for the first time in New Zealand, with food scraps generating enough renewable gas to regularly supply 18,000 homes. And that's just from Auckland. They also managed to divert enough food scraps to create enough liquid fertilizer to spread on nearly 100 square kilometers of productive land, which is the equivalent of 13,500 rugby fields. They have also, as Chewie was alluding to, saved the equivalent of 19,600 tons of harmful greenhouse gas emissions from landfill. And it is a similar effect to taking approximately 6,000 cars off of Auckland Road, or the equivalent of planting 500,000 fucking trees.
It's so dumb.
Yeah,
it's just so dumb. Like what is the benefit? Like, have they said anything? It's like, oh well, we've done this because here are some hard numbers that prove that it's bad. No, they've just made some vague swipes that it's increasing costs for councils, which they haven't backed up. They refuse to elaborate. The strength of their argument is so strong that they don't need to discuss it. And that's it.
Yeah.
And you could turn around and hit them with all of those numbers, and they go, yeah, but.
Well, actually, I think someone in the comments has the answer, and we haven't considered Labour bad.
Yeah, Labour bad. Let's just undo everything.
Was this their idea? Jeez.
Yeah, it's almost like it was a great idea.
I would support this if they did it halfway through last year when they rolled it out in Dunedin, and every community Facebook group was full of people going, but now my red bin's not big enough. Are we supposed to just keep our rubbish in the kitchen? Oh, I can't possibly think of anything more than 2 bins. That's stopped now, by the way, when people realise that, yes, your red bin has got smaller because you've got 2 more bins.
Yeah.
It was tiresome at the time. And if someone from National come in and go, look, we're scrapping it because we've looked at what's happening on Facebook and it's fucking annoying. And I would have gone, hell yeah, brother.
I heard there were people checking bins as well. Like the collection, when they were collecting, they were checking bins or refusing them.
I have never... chat, my bin passed. I got a little flyer
yeah.
that said I did good, and I put the color thing in the right color, and it was all good, and it didn't ruin everything for everybody. But I know councils around the country are having, like, I think I saw up in Auckland that they've just gone straight to, like, if you keep on putting transmission parts in the cardboard recycling bin, we're just taking your bin away. And then everybody's gone, but that's where I want to put my old oil and batteries. So people are losing their bins.
I feel like there's got to be a balance, because the one thing I just don't want to do is like discourage people from recycling and then being like, oh, well, it's too hard to try, so I'm just going to bin everything, you know, that kind of thing. So
I mean,
I can see it backfiring.
Yeah, but they have actually done studies on that kind of behavior as well. And they've actually found that, like, the same way people go, oh, well, we don't want those trans people to transition because the regret rate's this much. It turns out not actually that much people. Like, it just helps. It's about reduction. So, like, yeah, sure, some people aren't going to do it, but it does actually encourage that kind of behavior, especially the longer people are, you know, like Chewie was saying, people complained for ages in the beginning. But once people are familiar and kind of understand, you know, they stop whining so much. They get a little used to it, and it's all good.
Just as a little tangent, something I saw today. I saw this video that was absolutely fucking meant as rage bait, but it was I didn't clock who posted it at first, but it was just like, we've got this interview with this woman who has regrets about her abortion, and I was like, oh,
okay,
click. And it was just like the really impactful music and the soft lighting and that sort of thing. And she goes, I had an abortion, and, you know, I do have some regrets about that day. I should have got an M&M McFlurry on the way home. And it was the Onion, and I'm like, oh, undefeated.
Got him.
But that's the whole thing, is like, once we push through these things, like, nobody's complaining about the fucking bins anymore. No. Nobody's complaining about one-way traffic on the George Street CBD anymore, because people are used to it and it's good. You know, it's just, there is a lot of weight, I think, given to public discourse, you know, Facebook and all of this sort of stuff, just people vomiting out their ideas. And there's just a point where you got to give it some weighting, and you've got to go, oh, okay, so, like, on our Facebook page, overwhelming 95% of people think this is a dumb idea. And you can take that from any news story, any, you know, whatever. But there needs to be someone that comes on and goes, like there was a story the other day that said, like, under half of people surveyed thought that the ferries should be rail enabled.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, but an expert should come in that actually knows everything and like knows what the pros and cons of everything, and go, okay, so we give all of those, like, over half of the respondents to that they don't know what they're talking about. It's a very, very low rating.
Yeah,
you know, there needs to be some everybody sort of goes, oh, democracy is key. Sometimes it can be a meritocracy, like people who've these decisions, and usually we call them experts. And the problem is we have a government that gives experts a very low rating and is giving the Facebook comments and the news story comments a lot higher rating, and that's where I think we're at the moment.
Yeah, nah, and it's definitely an issue. And because, like, I mean, they say that there's supposedly this fund, you know, so this is the one from the Wellington Council that I was looking into, that under $2,000 and only up to $100,000 available each year, which, like, to really actually, you know, invest what needs to be invested to actually do a proper rollout system of things, like, it's kind of like, it just feels like they do these things all the time where they're just like, oh, nah, well, if we just give you a tiny bit of money, you'll be able to get it all set up and you'll be able to do all the things. When actually sometimes you do just need someone to front the bill, put it in, and then in the long run, it's going to save money. It's going to make money.
It runs on its own merits. Like, there's a few organizations that I can think of that, are minimizing like food waste from restaurants and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's either going to farms or compost or recovering what food can be fed to people and stuff like that, people in need. Like, all of this is good stuff. We don't
like these guys
get to a point. Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep, Kiwi Harvest, exactly who I was thinking of. We don't want to get to the point where everybody's just trucking everything in a skip and it's just going to the edge of town and dumped in a hole. Surely we are.
There's an entire restaurant here that just does serves recycled food.
Same
I don't
here.
remember the name of it.
Everybody eats.
That's it. Yes, everybody eats.
They have one here,
Hey,
one Christchurch, and what you can, and one in Auckland, because they also feed a lot of our homeless people here. I'm sure they feed your homeless people too, but because they pay what you can, they rescue the food, and then if you've got the money, you can pay, what it's worth, because they're fancy meals too. They're prepared by proper chefs. Like, I was blown away at the food. Like, I ate food I've never eaten before. And our homeless people get fed. You can go have a nice dinner and actually pay a bit extra, help people out. Like, there's so many ways as communities we could be having these initiatives, just like you're saying, just keeping them going. They're self-sustaining. Like, yes, it takes a bit of investment to put them in, but it's worthwhile fucking investment. And I mean, I think some of the comments have also been saying like, a lot of food scraps end up as dog food, feeding our pets and animals. So that's also generating, business in terms of jobs at those places and keeping things going. And I liked this joke too. The irony of this government being tough on waste, yet easy on themselves is palpable. And it's fucking true. Because like they're going hard on all these different things that are too expensive. But then, as DIY Guru says here, it makes you obviously go back to is this just another thing that they're trying to fuck so that private interests can maybe come in and make more money off of it? Probably. That's generally what they like to do. It's just horrible. Also, someone pointing out, imagine power shareholders if you could have renewable energy that, we're making ourselves and then able to have that kind of economy generating. Like, there's so many things, so many amazing things we could be doing. And yet,
I think in Europe there's some countries now that are importing waste to keep their waste energy plants going.
I have heard about that actually.
Yeah, imagine that. That wouldn't work for New Zealand, obviously, but having to go to your neighbours and go, "Hey, man, you got any of that garbage?
You got some of that compost, that good shit.
We want to put it in our power plant." It's just crazy, but like all of this stuff.
It's good industry.
Like how backwards in thinking this government is.
Yeah,
like it's another thing in the pile.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and like we always have to remember, 2.9 billion for landlords.
Yeah,
2.9 billion for landlords. That's all it really comes back to at the end of the day, unfortunately, isn't it? Okay. Chewie, since you are here, would you like to see if you've got any chats that you want to pop up while I just add something into the thingy-mabob?
We got a super chat from Mr. Arvids. Wait, what? You're telling me the lady who told the disabled to get fucked over Facebook is Environment Minister and telling yet another group to get fucked?
Yeah, I mean, succinct, salient. I mean, this government's just fucking. Oh, but I mean, we do have some what I deem to be kind of good news. But
let's have some good news. Yes,
this is what I would consider to be good news, because we got some really interesting stats around medicinal cannabis and Kiwis. And I'm a Kiwi who likes medicinal cannabis. So let's do this.
Very convenient.
No mai hoki mai. The number of New Zealanders switching from illegal to legal use of cannabis is continuing to grow, according to the latest Drug Habits Survey. And those using the drug for medical reasons are calling for funding to help make it more accessible. Sam Ollie reports.
10-year-old Eddie Thomas is among the 40,000 New Zealanders with a medicinal cannabis prescription.
It's saving his life every single day that we continue to use it.
He's been suffering seizures since he was 2.5, but
Katie.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering if I was wondering if you guys might recognize the face.
not much helped besides medicinal cannabis, which was much harder to access.
Every single drop was a fight to get.
But that has changed. According to the New Zealand Drug Trends survey, when medicinal cannabis laws were loosened in 2020, just 2% of users surveyed had a prescription. In 2023, it was up to 9%, and the latest data shows now up to 37%.
And I mean, that in of itself blew me away when I saw that number.
That's a huge jump.
It is actually, from what I was looking at, that is actually world leading in jumps in terms of converting from, likely converting from illicit to legal use. So, yeah, really interesting. Let's keep playing.
Have a prescription.
It's actually quite positive compared to other countries that embarked on similar reform.
We're all pleased to see that there's an increasing acceptance and a lowering of the stigma.
But the majority of users still don't have a script. The most common reasons: people don't think their doctor would agree to it, many are happy with their current supply, or say legal products are too expensive, and some say they feel stigma and embarrassment about asking.
You never know exactly what you're getting on the illegal market. What is the concentration of THC? There's also the risk of inconsistent supply.
Medicinal cannabis is most commonly used in New Zealand to treat mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression, as well as sleep problems and pain. But it's also sometimes used for epilepsy, autoimmune diseases, nausea and autism.
I definitely expect the numbers of prescribed patients and prescriptions to increase.
While the industry hopes users will opt for its consistent quality.
The scheme requires and obligates growers to operate in very particular ways. No one outside of the scheme needs to do that. Therefore, there will always be a difference in price. But equally, you will be always able to trust the quality of the product.
Pharmac doesn't subsidise medicinal cannabis products, and doses often cost hundreds of dollars per month.
When you have something that is unfunded, it's quite overwhelming.
Expensive for a parent, but life-changing for this child. Sam Ollie, One News.
Yeah, and so obviously, like they've said in there, it's amazing to see obviously the increase, but we do also now, like as they were saying, there's conversations around how do we get more access and also make it easier, because I've made a table so that I can give people a bit of an insight into the pricing of medicating for someone who needs medicinal cannabis. I myself, I've mentioned, I'm autistic. I also have fibromyalgia, so I'm doubly fucked.
What is that one? Just.
For people who don't know what fibromyalgia is, it's kind of basically, to TLDR, it's just a pain syndrome. It's a bunch of different conditions that just basically mean I have a really not fun time and my body does a lot of not fun things, which is why sometimes if you've seen me around town, I actually have a walking stick. Sometimes I have a walking stick, sometimes I don't, because sometimes my body works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's really all it is. But when it comes to these kind of things, so like, first of all, to even, obviously have a consultation with a doctor, you're looking at about $70 to $90. And then when it comes to actually medicating, let's say for someone who has a relatively mild kind of usage that they have, you might use up to about 1 gram of flour per day, right? Approximately 30 grams, or what we call in the black market an O a month. That's going to set you back approximately $409. And that's only if you buy one specific type. However, if you're having to obviously use different types for different reasons, you're likely going to have to pay, approximately $145 every 10 days just for, your dosage, which compared to obviously subsidized medicine is a lot. There's also the fact is that even if you do just say, if you're a flower user, you do still use oils. So your doctor will always pretty much prescribe you CBD oil, and those vials, they set you for a 30 ml. They'll set you back approximately $179. And that can last you anywhere from 1 to 3 months, depending on your needs. So, you think about all of those prices and how they start adding together. You also have to buy like vaporizers, because obviously you can't smoke your medicine because that is not good for you. So you need to buy a vaporizer. Those can be anywhere from $150 to like $700. So you add all of that together, and that can be a lot of money every month. And it's great to see people are picking up and kind of thing, but it's definitely costing a lot for people to try and do it the right way.
And if you compare that to like Auckland or something, where the black market is thriving and it's very competitive, like prices are low.
Exactly. And like I said, they're prohibitive prices. Sorry, you Chewie?
I was just saying in the chat. I am not a consumer of cannabis. So I'm a good boy. I stick to legal alcohol occasionally. The only thing that has probably kept me away from it in my youth is the DARE program and not wanting to be a smoker.
Oh, hell yeah. I would do the DARE program.
But I am not so much of a nerd to be completely blind to the fact that this stuff does work for a huge array of conditions that people have, and the benefits are really, really clear. There have been people for decades, I think they were referred to as green fairies, who were basically making oils and resins for people and that sort of thing, and just trying to fly under the radar and doing good. And I think this is... We talked about this when we were talking about the cannabis referendum and that sort of thing, that the government wants to be tough on crime. This would be a huge nut punch to most of the gangs.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they're dealing in pig and all of that sort of stuff, but it's always cannabis that has been the
that's their bread and butter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the biggest and most reliable revenue stream, and the police expend an enormous amount of money. Like being from Canterbury, I remember Air Force helicopters full of cops flying up and down the riverbeds all day looking for illegal plantations and stuff like that. And the opportunity to look at this as a tax revenue source, B, a medicinal industry that could be regulated, taxed, and provide good for the public, and free up all of that money that's spent on these anti-cannabis operations, and your extra special bonus is to really fuck over the gangs.
Yeah.
Why did everybody drop that ball?
And police resources,
because of
more
a
police
perception
resources
of like
elsewhere.
Oh, look, yeah, exactly. Like you make drug use a medical issue. Just in all things. We think this might be good for you. We think that you're having too much. Either way, it's a health issue with so many flow-on benefit effects. And we drop that ball referendum because people have a weird attitude when it comes to cannabis. Some of the most pro-cannabis people just put off other people. And there's always been that stigma.
Yes.
Right?
And
huge inroads into going like, okay, so but my whole thing was I remember back in my Polytech days of filming a news story about J-Day here in Dunedin, where they just openly smoked in the Octagon and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, these fucking hippies.
Yeah.
I knew that I didn't like weed, so therefore everybody that does is a loser. And you know,
I
I had a
was
friend who
like
really
that.
liked it and was just obnoxious about it. It was his whole personality. It just drove me batty at the time. So that's where my prejudices were at. And filming this story, I just spoke to someone and he goes, look, you know, do you have a beer after work? I was like, yeah. Cool. And that's
Same thing.
like state regulated, state taxed, state controlled.
Right.
And you know where you stand. You know, you can drive. You know where you can buy stuff and all of this sort of stuff. How is this different? And I
alcohol's a classified poison too. So
not only
the alcohol related harm, like alcohol is just harmful. Like there isn't a fringe medical benefit. Like if they said, oh, you know, 3 or 4 whiskeys in a month will lessen your chance of cancer by 45%. I guess we'd all be having a dram in front of the fire. It would be a very
They probably did at one point in history.
Gaiman Allegations.
Heroin. Heroin. Try that.
Well, to be fair,
Gaiman Allegations did a very good report, like I think 2 years ago, just about alcohol and advertising, just its influence. And since I watched that, well, that's all I noticed. It's like it's almost nonstop. You're being berated with freaking alcohol advertisements everywhere. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
It's horrible.
So what is the difference? And yes, there's people in the chat pointing this out. This is an excellent point. Historically, a lot of the issues and stigma and prejudice around cannabis, even down to the name, you know, we call it marijuana because it's, you know, all of that sort of stuff comes from racism, comes from people protecting their alcohol industries, and a way of punishing poor non-white people for having something recreational or having something traditional. It's fun.
No, it is.
And I think when again we refocus and look at the referendum that we fumbled, is that we had a government that had a mandate that was too scared to just get up and talk these facts that we're mentioning now to try and combat a narrative of like this is Labor just being soft on crime. And the only people that were talking sense about this was, of course, the Greens. And if people just rolled their eyes and went, of course the Greens are pro-marijuana. And we're like, yeah, but listen to what they're telling you.
They're not just pro-cannabis. They're pro what it can do. To be fair, though, I do know from people in my own like world that it wasn't just that as well. There was also actually pushes from obviously like the illicit community where they were doing like anti-campaigns against it because they were trying to be like, well, this is going to harm us. And so obviously people didn't want to, you know, people who tend to have, especially if they've got a regular person that they go to, that person is kind of your friend, maybe even your family, you know, kind of thing. So you have a lot of loyalty to that person. And they did utilize that loyalty during the referendum to kind of, you know, obviously there were people who were scared. So like, yeah, there was definitely a lot of aspects. I know I was so disappointed because I managed to convince my 80-year-old grandmother to vote yes. And we still fucked it up. And it's just disappointing because like, especially when we think about it from like a mental health perspective, we've got shit mental health in this country. The amount of conditions that people in New Zealand struggle with, that they're already self-medicating with, but the problem is they're self-medicating illicitly, which means there is the amount of times I've heard of people getting like, you know, weed that's been laced with stuff is not unusual.
Or just, you know, the classic case of finding something that works for you and then going, I want it to work better, so I'll take more. Pushing through that helpful band into an area of potential psychosis and that sort of thing. But because you're doing it yourself with an illegal substance, who do you turn to?
Yeah, you also don't know what you're putting into your body.
That's the other aspect of it, of like if you were going to a doctor, if it was part of a treatment regime, it was like, you know, it's that classic thing of like, oh, we'll start you off on this and we'll see how we go and we'll just make sure that everything's good. All right, we'll increase the dosage. That's okay, that's too much, we'll bring it back down. It just baffles me. Like,
well, that's basically what happened with my doctor. I had to basically eventually trust my doctor enough and then have a conversation like, hey, I'm illicitly using this thing and is the only thing in my life that has helped me. And I'm scared to ask you, but you seem like a G. And she's like, okay, well, let's see what we can do from here. You know, then she tested me. Is it the CBD or is it the THC or is it both, you know? And then we had that conversation. But to have that experience is very rare. So that's exactly what you're talking about. It's exactly what I went through of just like, you know, having to kind of be like, I know that this helps me, but I don't know how to express this to someone without them looking at me and going, oh, so you're just a fucking addict who wants to get fucked up all the time. It's like, no, I'm someone who's struggling. And no matter, I have been on so many pharmaceutical medications that have actually done irreparable body damage to my body now. Like, I will never recover from some of the things that those medicines have done to me. And yet, like, trying to have a conversation with a doctor about having something that grows in the ground has been a struggle. And, like, yeah, it's difficult. But, I mean, at least we're seeing things are changing. And I think, you know, like, we see it in that 37%. Like, that is insane, that amount of jump in just 4 years.
This is the other part that I would love to know is, and we'll never know because of its illegality, and you can't exactly go out and ask for a dealer's profit and loss statement or a sales, that sort of thing. They're traditionally quite protective of that information.
Dealers must declare anything over 30 grand.
It would be really interesting to see if that has had an effect on the illegal trade.
You know, and I mean, I'm sure it has. I am pretty sure. I mean, it can't not have some effect because the people who are converting, like, because that's the thing about it is that you convert because you want a reliable thing. Like, it sucks when you go and you get some stuff and you're like, cool, this is great for nighttime. I can't have this to mitigate during the day because this is the wrong strain. I can't smoke this during the day, but it's all I've got. So instead, I'm probably just going to incorrectly medicate. And that's the point, is that you need those things to be accurate. Like, and especially because when it comes to having access to the medical, you know, realms, I'll share a couple of images that I've got here. These are the kinds of things that you see when you have a medicinal thing, is that you can identify what they call terpenes. When you can identify the different terpenes, you can actually then also target the different needs and what you're medicating. This is the important stuff, all the geeky science shit that, like, I personally love. Like, I'm a huge cannabis nerd. The science is just super cool because guess what, guys? We all have cannabinoidal systems in our bodies. Dogs are really sensitive ones.
Yeah, science, bitch.
Exactly.
Cannabis nerd. I've never heard anyone self-refer themselves as a cannabis nerd.
Hey, I follow cannabis scientists on Instagram. They're influencers to me, thank you very much. Actually, also quite a lot of interesting research that's also being done on, like, you know, LSD and psilocybin, especially for people with like autism and ADHD. Some really interesting science that's being worked on that, you know, because of all the stigma and shit, we're just going, nah, that's just that stuff that they used to do in the 70s. And now we just think of those people as drop kicks, right? Like, nah.
Oh, you mean that decade where everyone started waking up? That was
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it keeps going, though. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that.
I find that that's really interesting that that's happening under this government. So obviously they've either not noticed or yeah, it'll change at some point. But like, I am stoked that that is helping people. That's the key. I don't care what government does that. It's helping people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, it definitely wasn't this government that brought it in, but I mean, hey, they're probably encouraging people to seek a doctor at the current time, because it is definitely prescribed for stress and anxiety. So, and we can guarantee that this government is causing a lot of that. I'm sure they've impacted a lot of people's prescriptions. Oh, you know what? I wonder if there's data that shows a change in dosage from doctors' prescriptions around the time of the government change. You could probably find that. Oh, actually, I should. Do we have any comments? I'm just gonna load up thing or anything interesting from the chat that you guys can see that you want to talk about while I read.
Late fee.
I have
43 minutes late. Come on.
How dare.
It's good to see.
I've been just actively avoiding looking at any chat. I'm just pretending I'm not even live. That's my trick right now.
That is...
Kiwi also posted up, why isn't ACT, the Libertarian Party, trying to legalize weed? Instead, they're chasing after the failed regulatory standards bill. Here's the reason. ACT is not a Libertarian Party. They're not. They're just not. They're a right-wing reactionary party that's got a big old hard-on for punishing people. So they're not. They love to say that they are, but they're not. I do remember a story from a few years back of the youth wing just going to town on Big Brother, going, all drugs should be legalized because we're a libertarian party, aren't we? And that meant that ACT actually had to have a crackdown and go, would you guys shut the fuck up?
I believe they did
legalize heroin.
No, they did like the $1 party pill thing, I think, with David
That's
Seymour
right,
did that, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, what? Dollar party pills?
Yeah.
Oh,
They sell
God. Oh,
Yeah,
like the OG.
Well, they didn't sell it. There was a legal loophole or something. And it was, it's like, we're not actually
Okay.
selling them.
Oh, and I don't think they were doing nitrous and stuff like that as an open test. Yeah.
Names with ACT?
Yes, with the ACT logo on them.
No,
it was a big deal. But I gave them props, right? Because if you're going to say you're a libertarian party, that's what it comes down to, right? You go, okay, each to their own. You fucking, if you want to do heroin, as long as you're still a productive member of society, don't fuck with people, go for it.
Yeah,
like it's where
decriminalize.
libertarianism falls apart. But
Yeah.
you can have a coherent discussion about it in the theoretical, and part of that is you go, well, drug use is a health issue, not a criminal issue.
And maybe a
that
slight
was too
to the hand
scary
later.
for the main party to have that conversation.
We might actually see there's a trend with sort of neoliberal practices and policies, and actually the rise of the drug trade. There might be a correlation there, as you I'll sort of try to point out later.
Oh, and look, it is interesting. We're on a hell of a tangent now, folks. We're on a hell of a tangent.
That's all right. That's all right.
Isn't it funny when you think of drug use? What drugs are seen as acceptable and not?
Oh,
Heroin, very, very bad. Cocaine, fun party drug. Because
I guess.
because of who it appeals to, right?
Yeah, it's the
like
demographic.
you got all the finance and politicians,
the rich
with a bag of
people.
powder. Yeah, absolutely.
And as you said, Nangs, completely unregulated. I see people driving around in cars like huffing balloons. You know what they've been doing.
That is,
Yeah, nah, it is, and that's the thing is, it's always been motivated by like targeting minorities and fucking with people on a metric that just works for them. We might quickly move on to the next story because it's not a fun story, but I have to fucking talk about it because I really, really used to like. Obviously,
I read this article. Oh
yeah.
my God.
And I didn't just read the article. I've been listening to the fucking podcast, bro. Holy shit. I mean, we'll play this little segment, and then it's only a little segment, and then I got some ported already prepared on some of this already.
Best-selling British author Neil Gaiman has released a statement denying he has ever engaged in non-consensual sex after a magazine published allegations from several women accusing him of sexual assault. The 64-year-old author of the Sandman comic book series and novel American Gods was responding on Wednesday to a New York Magazine article that detailed allegations of assault, abuse, and coercion made by 8 women. The allegations of 4 of them had been broadcast in July last year in a podcast, and most relate to occasions when Gaiman was in his 40s or older and living in the United States, Britain, and New Zealand. Gaiman said he had watched stories about him circulate on the internet for months with horror and dismay.
So yes, and as many of you would have just noticed at the end there, New Zealand gets a mention because there's the New Zealand mention. For those of you who may have also maybe remember Neil Gaiman in the headlines because he broke lockdown protocols. That was the last time he was in New Zealand headlines, technically, for New Zealand-related things.
I think he had to apologise to the entire Isle of Skye in the UK for risking everybody on the island because he noped out of New Zealand and just flew back to the Isle of Skye.
I wonder why. He noped out of New Zealand, maybe. Interesting. Yeah. Seems like crazy timing.
I mean...
Wish he gave people the option to nope out, but...
Yeah. Look, I don't know how many in the chat have read that Vulture article. Look, I saw it circulating around. Look, I'm a fan of Sandman and
same.
And that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm aware of he's had a range of a big impact. And obviously with his wife, whose name escapes me, or ex-wife, his name escapes me.
Palmer, what's her face? I had her name somewhere. Got it somewhere.
From the Dresden Dolls. Look,
yes.
Artistically, I like both of them. But what that voiceover on that story sort of just soft sells there. There's allegations from several women. What that should have said is more than 20 women.
Yeah.
With remarkably similar stories spread out over 20 years and half the planet.
Yep, which I actually did put into the description of this video. If you read the story and the thing, I made that very clear is that, yes, this spans the whole globe, multiple decades. Yeah. And women who have stories that are too similar. Too similar.
Yeah. I saw people circulating that story and everybody sort of going, "Oh, this was a hard read," and I was like, "How could it be?" It is harrowing.
Oh,
it is a horrible story. It seems to be an incredibly well researched story, and I have no trouble believing it. And certainly to the point where it's obviously prompted him to make a public statement, kind of apology. Kind of not. And it just, when you read something and it just has the ring of truth, this, his apology, his statement doesn't have it. The article fucking does.
Yeah. And actually the podcast, so I see a comment asking about the podcast. So the podcast itself is called Master, the Allegations against Neil Gaiman. Okay.
Alleged. Everything's alleged.
I'm used to calling him Gaiman, so I'll probably switch between two. But yes, I am on, I'll be honest, I got up to episode 2 and I was having to pause so many times because the things that have been described and said, as someone who has unfortunately been around people who have, crossed my boundaries and done the wrong things, I recognize so much from these stories. As a victim of other people, all of this is not only triggering alarm bells about what he did, but also as someone who has a lot of knowledge of the kink community, him trying to even make that a part of this story, that part to me is really not important, because even if you do take it from a BDSM standpoint, he broke all the rules.
Yeah. But the big thing with that, as I understand it, is consent and boundaries, and people have the ability to tap out. There's none of that. There's a massive power dynamic. There is a massive age gap on all of these women. Amanda Palmer, his ex-wife, is is involved.
Yeah,
it's mental,
and it's horrible because I mean, you
like-
say the tap out thing. He didn't do that from the accounts that I've been
not at
listening to. Didn't what safe word?
And I say this with like absolutely earnestly. If you're going to hunt out that article, be prepared for what's in it. It is pretty confronting. And I think if you have had any sort of sketchy sexual experiences or any sort of sexual assault run into that, don't read it. I can see how it would be incredibly triggering for people. But what it shines a light on, I think, just as well as individually, allegedly, how much of a scumbag he is, allegedly.
Yes, allegedly.
Everything's allegedly. It does really illustrate that power dynamic thing. And I think when it comes to subcultures, let's say, I remember reading a story a few years ago about a pretty notorious guy in the Auckland and Wellington goth scene, who was basically doing the same thing to people in that community. And you look at these subcultures and people that have had the type of people that have gravitated to a smaller, darker subculture and that sort of thing. Maybe they didn't have a great upbringing, that sort of all sorts of things that would make you gravitate towards a charismatic person who you've put a lot of like especially authors, man. You disappear into books. This is the person that has conjured up some of my favorite stories, some of my favorite characters, and now he's giving me attention. And then you hear the thing of like, well, a borderline homeless, money's an issue, COVID has happened, I have nowhere to go, but I have this person that I am now clinging to like a life raft, and this life raft is trying to fuck me in the ass and drown me. It's not even a joke.
It's just a horrible situation though. And that's the thing, is that like, that's what's so infuriating, is that like, I can see, there's people already trying to say, because of, the so-called BDSM element, like, first of all, they did not have a contract signed or written up or proper discussions beforehand. Because the one thing that I really, really just was infuriating me about this is that if you don't know anything about kink, you don't have to. But the one thing that you need to know is that a lot of the time it's really fucking boring, because you're sitting there talking about a bunch of logistics. It's just logistics chat a lot of the time. There was no logistics chat. Without logistics chat, there is no consent. And just, it's infuriating that he's, and that's the thing. It's like, she was a fan of Amanda Palmer's. So she was not only a fan of, Neil himself, she was a fan of the wife. And from what I've learned and what I've been listening to, she was completely isolated. She didn't have a support system. She didn't have friends or family that she could really, rely on. And he clearly knew that and manipulated that. And I mean, it's, there's also the fact that when she went and told Amanda said, well, this isn't the first time. Here, let me put, like, she had a room that she would put his victims in when they came to her crying.
What was it, 14?
14, I believe, was
that Amanda Palmer knew about.
That she allegedly knew about, because she has not confirmed it herself. This is just the what we understand from the information that has been brought to light. Yes.
This show is brought to you by the letter A, for allegedly. But yeah, certainly the article does read like Amanda Palmer is feeding young women to Neil. And that happened before their divorce and after.
I mean, there is also a very likely chance, though, that she herself is also a victim of Neil, because, I mean, a lot of the times this happens. I mean, there was that NXIVM cult where, the cult leader had... Yeah, no, it's because we were talking about it, like, just before Christmas. And, he got a bunch of, people that were recruiting, victims into his sex cult. Like, it's a very common tactic of people who, you know, abuse these things. And also, like you were saying about like the whole kink part of it too, there's a lot of education out there to try and tell people, like, just because someone says that they're a dom and you're now in a dom sub relationship, that doesn't mean that they can't abuse you and that you can't say no. Like, people have to be told this, because it can get, you know, there's a lot of nuance to trying to maintain boundaries when you're playing with the boundaries and blurring them. But there are a lot of people who take advantage of that, and it's horrific, the things that they do.
Now, for people that have maybe come in halfway through this discussion, who's this Neil that we're talking about? He sounds horrible. I just want to clarify that it's not this Neil. This is Neil from Star Wars Skeleton Crew, and he is a precious little creature who must be protected at all costs. He is the universe's one pure soul. We're not talking about this Neil. He is blameless.
I thought that was one of the Wimbles of Wombledon.
No, this is Neil. He is a space elephant, and I love him.
I've been told I have to watch Skeleton Crew, so this just confirms it for me, and I'm going to have to fucking watch it now.
This is what I did over my break as I watched it. It's a perfect Star Wars show.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yep.
But was
I
it
just got a
Andor
couple of
too?
comments.
Yeah.
Don't need to go on the Star Wars
tangent.
tangent.
Going to be a Star Wars.
No. I can't derail the show completely, guys.
Yeah, we can't.
I might have the tattoo, but we can't derail this too much.
I was just doing a joke, not trying to just derail a
Patreon
serious
extras.
conversation.
That's
I've got a couple of comments here. Hadron Collider. The worst part is Gaiman attempting to explain his essay with autism. And as a neurodivergent person, it makes me so mad. 100%. Every time someone does this, it was my ADD, and I didn't know that doing the thing was bad. Or autism, and I don't pick up my social cues. No. If these alleged things happened, allegedly in the article, Neil Gaiman allegedly did, they are too consistent over too long a period, and he seems to be very self-aware about what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Disrespectfully, fuck off.
Yeah, absolutely. In the biggest letters. And Peter is a nice little piece of information here. He's got the same PR firm as Danny Masterson and Prince Andrew.
Ooh.
Which is kind of bad that Rogers Loki looks like Danny Masterson right now, but
I wasn't going to say.
I had to say it. It's too obvious.
I mean, you weren't supposed to reveal my identity. Like I said no.
Yeah. Actually, that's why we got
why
you
are you dropping
this
hints?
episode. It's because you've got lived experience, allegedly.
Yeah.
We need an experienced person.
And Peter with the $5 super chat, thank you very much, buddy. I'm never buying any of his books or watching his stuff ever again. I can't separate the art from the artist, at least not a living one who's going to benefit from us. That's a really interesting discussion. It comes up all the time, but can you separate art from the artist? And I think sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. And Peter here, I think I'm very much in the camp of like, for both of them, I cannot separate what they do out of this article.
Yeah, neither can I. I mean,
I think
especially given some of the topics that Neil has written about, the things that he has depicted, that is exactly the first thing I thought of, because obviously I had started reading Sandman and I was loving it. And then this shit started coming out and I went, oh no, that's a bit fucking scary. I don't know if it made me want to vomit that I enjoyed reading it.
He's not autistic. He just sees people in subservient positions as being objects rather than people. I think that definitely rings true.
I mean, to be fair, though, we have to be like, just because he's using autism as an excuse doesn't mean he's not autistic, because autistic people can be shitty. Look at Elon. We are not a monolith. We can have shitty people in our community the same way we can have shitty people in the queer community and every other community. Everyone can be a piece of shit. That is the real lesson.
Also,
anyway,
before I forget, just on the topic of artists, rest in peace, David Lynch. He died.
Oh yes.
Oh really?
Yeah, he died this morning, I believe.
Oh shit.
Obviously, being a film nerd, I should make some grand sweeping statement about how influential David Lynch has been to me. I never got into his films. I was surrounded by people who absolutely love his work, and I'm just like, I don't get it. And maybe it's because what I mentioned earlier is that I'm not a weed smoker. Maybe that's important, the drug taking for the David Lynch films. But yeah, no. But you cannot deny the influence that he's had on films. And just, I do love the fact that he was someone that was very clearly keen to run on the most batshit insane ideas and actually get them out there.
Yeah.
They weren't safe projects that he was doing.
Also, everyone go Google David Lynch quinoa. It's just him making quinoa. It's a great video. Go watch it.
Or quinoa, if you don't know what quinoa is. Okay, so I know we've got a little bit of a presentation from you, Roger. So do we want to get into that?
Oh no. Yes.
I can share some memes for a little bit if you need a minute.
Oh yeah,
so,
like a minute.
Yeah, well, I'll start sharing some memes. Why not? Like, let's have some memes. Oh my god, okay, this is weird. I've never done it this way. So we got, you're gonna need a bigger boat. Honestly, now is not a good time. Interest rates are higher than ever, and used boats are still in high demand. Supply issues, you know. I'd recommend trying to refinance, if anything. Which,
so from this, I'm going to just take a stab there and say that shark is actually in his late 30s, early 40s, because that's all you talk about when you get to the tape. Fucking interest rates. It's such a meme, and we all know it, and it always happens every time we get out dinner. Talk about interest rates. I hate it, but I participate and sometimes instigate.
Yeah, adding yourself. This was actually made by one of our Discord members.
Oh, that's good.
I thought you might like that. I can send you the actual just image if you want it, because I feel like that would look good on the Dunedin Hospital, eh? Well, the site, I should say.
They save, we pay. Oh,
also this was from someone's. I think it might have been one of the community members just posted this as their memory. They just had this in their photos and they just posted it, and I just thought that was beautiful. Like,
oh my God.
I love that. Also, I'm sure we've all seen old Zuck memes, because, well, yeah, he's been an idiot. So now, because of his taking away of his rules and attacking trans people and being a general asshole, everyone's making jokes about him either having a micro penis or what's the next one? Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. Well, there's no fact checkers. We don't know anymore. That's the whole point.
Allegedly, yes.
Have you got the one about his penis pump?
Well, we'll go. I can show you what I've got. So we've got a rebrand to Z. We've got arrested in LA for trying to suck his own dick at a Wendy's. I liked that one. We've got Facebook CEO and known hentai addict Mark Zuckerberg caught performing lewd sex acts with dog on hiking trail, allegedly.
That one's actually true.
Again, no fact checkers on Facebook. Who knows? Facebook founder and convicted pedophile Mark Zuckerberg, dead at 36, says social media sites did not fact check posts. Zuckerberg, who died of coronavirus and complications from syphilis at his home near Facebook headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska, says it's not Facebook's role to be the arbiter of truth. He has succeeded in death.
I mean, he looks sick just by the image, so, you know, I could tell.
This is the first one that I saw.
Is this the one you were talking about? Yes, so yes.
No, this is the first one I saw, but the one I'm talking about was that blamed the LA fires on a spark from his electric penis pump.
That's great. I like that. I also do like the idea of Mark Zuckerberg being the recipient of the world's first rat penis transplant. This one, Mark Zuckerberg, who at the age of 19 married his first cousin, decided in an amazing turn of events that he was going to run for the seat of Grandmaster Pope. He also decided to get rid of fact checkers on his site. Definitely no correlation between the two. This is kind of a meme, but it's more just like, oh wow. Apparently 44 Republicans voted against forest management in December.
Here's another fun thing, not a meme. But do you know where all the Californian Republican politicians were while this wildfire was going on? Because they're politicians, they're community influence, they bring their power to bear, they're part of the ruling party, that sort of thing. They were at Mar-a-Lago. They weren't in their state. They went to Florida to kiss the ring of Trump.
Oh, for fuck's sakes, of course they
roast
did.
People. Just gross.
And then we've got, there was this post in the Discord. Basically, this one was funny. So I can't remember if this was from Discord or it might have been from Discord. Good old summer of submissions, since that's really what they've been putting us under.
Oh, yeah, I felt that. Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Also, something fun. Police are launching an appeal to find a man who stole a blue siren light from a police car. He was last seen running down the street shouting, "Nina, Nina." Anyone who recognized the person in this photo or has more information on the incident is asked to call 0800 40 50 40, quoting reference number 266.
Should be arrested. It should be like the police should know better than that to have an unsecured light bar in a dodgy area.
Right,
like a Pizza Hut number or something too.
That part of town.
Oh my god, you're right. It is the Pizza Hut number, isn't it?
I think so. It's something like that. It's one of those businesses.
Why is it a New Zealand toll? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Don't ask questions, Chewie. It's a fucking meme. This was actually just a topical one. I love how people treat gang cultures as something new and unique, as if unemployed, unlanded men and women haven't always turned to banditry. If you were unlanded third or fourth son in Scandinavia, you hopped on a ship and started robbing shit. If you were a poor peasant in China, you took to the mountains and robbed merchants. If you were cast out in Benin, you ran off to the jungle. The street youth are closer to the Vikings than some insurance agent that LARP on the weekend.
This is very true. Now, one of my, I guess, soothing background YouTube channels that I like to watch or listen to is an Irish woodworker using traditional tools and that sort of thing. But he'll often build things and tell you the story behind it. But the one that I saw the other day was him building or making a shillelagh. You guys know
yes.
Yes.
For non-nerds, what is a shillelagh?
Essentially, a shillelagh is a walking stick, but it's made of very dense wood, and often they'll have a lead weight in there. And that's because the Irish weren't allowed to have weapons when they were colonized by the English. But you would never... It's not a weapon. You wouldn't take a walking stick off an old man, would you? So, yeah, they'd make these walking sticks, which were very definitely doing double duty as a weapon. The Irish used to have things called organized faction fights, where young men from one village or one area would team up against another group of young men from another village down the road and meet up in a field and beat the shit out of each other with shillelaghs until there was a winner. So yes, we love gangs. Given any chance, we will form a gang. That's just what people do. Like,
oh no, that's gonna get clipped out of context now, Chewie.
No, it's exactly the same. The only reason we don't do it, well, we do it now in wartime or in organized sports. That's what we do. We still form gangs.
Well, yes, and I agree. 1v1 in the field, but also someone said, "What's nerd about it?"
You're from Canterbury.
What's nerd about the shillelagh? Well, I'm not pronouncing it correctly. It's because I know it from D&D. So that's why I called it nerdy.
Since I got memed the other day on Blue Sky because the Spin-Off put up an article about Golriz's shoplifting, and it was a dreadful, shitty article that was basically treating this Pack and Say thing like she'd actually shoplifted. It was a really bad article. And so I posted up a thing that was like, come on, Spin-Off, fucking sort it out and pull the article. And someone's just done this.
What?
Of that image of that guy walking up to George Bush talking about the second trade tower being hit. And it's just like the Spin-Off has lost Chewie.
That's
and I
beautiful.
cackled.
Man.
It's amazing.
That you're truly a celebrity now, man. That's true. That's true
real
status
right there.
of
That's great.
celebritydom. Anyway, Rogers, I see you've got some of your stuff up. We might have to do a bit of a speed run, but
oh my
let's
goodness,
go into an Atlas hole. I mean,
you said that. Yeah, look, I'll try and
show
make
me
it
your
as snappy
Atlas
as
hole,
possible.
please.
Sure, I'll show you my Atlas hole in just 1 second. So, firstly, this is a good place for the mic, right? Just before I continue talking.
Yep, it's good.
You can hear me? Cool. All right. Put it up.
Oh, yep. Sorry.
There you go. So, what am I doing? Well, look, Mage was kind enough to ask me to try and look into something for when I was invited on the show, and I had quite a few things lined up, and this was one of the ones that have been itching the back of my mind for quite a bit now. So, 1st of December last month, Q&A releases this video called The Atlas Network, What Is It? Which was
and
just kind
smoke
of a
up
puff,
their asshole. Yeah.
yeah, kind of just a puff piece for Atlas, and left a lot of people godsmacked. So starting with that, it starts off by interviewing Debbie Gibbs here, who is on the Atlas board for over 10 years. She was chair of the board of directors since 2021. She's outgoing, I believe. She's daughter of Alan and Jenny Gibbs. We'll hear about them later, but they're, as people may know, they're quite influential figures in New Zealand. She worked for 95 BFM, which I thought was interesting. She seemed to have some kind of radio hosting career, and she did a couple interesting things I thought I'd just note about that. She said when getting accepted to the radio station that she accredits partly to diversity hiring. It seems she seems to imply that she was not worthy of the position, and she, quote, would hire any stray female who walked in the door regardless of their abilities. And was encouraged to run the station for political reasons. So it seems like that was sort of her first political play. That's in an interview with 95 a couple of years back, maybe a decade. So I listened to the entire thing.
Some weird internalized misogyny, but okay.
Yeah.
Pop off
Exactly.
this, I guess.
Yep. And then I wanted to outline sort of the key questions on what I had and what this video was trying to answer, which is, what is Atlas? Why did Q&A make this puff piece, and why they allege like this? They show a clip of Dr. No from James Bond in the video, alleging it's this Dr. Evil like society. But going forward, we might not. That's not that big of a stretch, honestly, if you sort of start piecing everything together. And the other thing was just, do they fund political activity? She gave a pretty blatant no, we don't. In there, and the thing was, they reiterated about 3 or 4 times that we shouldn't make assumptions. So I decided, you know what, let's not make assumptions. Let's just go digging. So that's what I decided to do. And so I did a deep dive into the history of Atlas and kind of the whole neolib framework. So I'm just going to introduce you to a few key characters that we're going to see constantly popping up. I call them the 3 besties. We have Friedrich Hayek, Milton Friedman, and we have Anthony Fisher. Friedrich Hayek is, your debate bro, born in Vienna, who's like a Jordan Peterson type, very reserved, champion of free market. He founded the it's like the Moan Pelerin Society. I do not remember how to pronounce it. It's something along those lines. And he wrote a book known as The Road to Serfdom, which basically says government control is bad, and it's essentially like the neoliberal playbook. This other man, Milton Friedman, also a debate bro. He's Dawkins, Negro Cross Tyson sort of type. He's very eccentric. So he's less of the reserved, methodical type. He's going around places. He's talking to people about, you know, the free market. He's that kind of guy. He's very triggered by Kenyanism. He's the guy that originated the whole natural state of unemployment thing that we use them. Yep. He's that guy. He developed monetarism, which is the opposite of Keynesianism, sorry, which is Keynesianism is like in COVID when they injected money into the economy because we're going into recession. It was great. He's the opposite. Don't touch it. We don't want inflation going up. My billions by billions, you know, he's that kind of guy.
So millions Friedman, we could call him. Okay, good.
If you want. Yeah, I was bestie number 2, but and then you got Anthony Fisher, who is the originator, the key architect behind Atlas. This guy founded Atlas. You know, he was sort of your Walt Disney, Steve Jobs type. He was very inspired by Hayek's book, The Road to Serfdom. So yeah, and Atlas has a couple of things to say on their website. It's very much just like the Wikipedia page, but it did have one key thing I wanted to highlight, which was they said he was inspired to think of ways to drive grassroots level change and promote free market opportunities. So these guys see them as grassroots. They see themselves, or at least sell themselves as grassroots. So that's a part of their sort of ploy, is trying to appeal to that mindset, that this isn't a big government, this isn't big business. This is small individual people like helping each other in the name of capitalism, I guess. All right, so now we go on to the, here it is, the Mon Pelerin Society. There you go, that's how you pronounce it, which was founded in 1947. That was 1 year after Friedman goes to University of Chicago. We'll talk about that a bit later. It's sort of a sultry thinkers club for smoking gentlemen. There was probably a lot of sexual there, I assume. These guys sat around and just sniffed each other's farts and went, yes, that is a great idea. You're quite a sexual. So I'm sure they had a great time. You know, hopefully no one touched each other's legs, but maybe they did.
Up each other, yeah.
Maybe they would have had a better time. And look, so these guys, Friedman and Hayek, they invited their mentors to come along, who we'll hear about later. And then you've got the University of Chicago and the Chicago School of Economics. This is also going to be referenced.
Very bad.
Very bad. This is from that guy. Sorry, it wasn't founded by the guy Milton Friedman, but he was sort of a very key figure in a lot of this. He was a teacher there and trained a lot of the people we're going to sort of see later on coming back into this. So that's free market advocacy, economic institution, best way to put it. And key faculty and alumni were Milton Friedman, the Chicago boys, who we're going to find about later, and Ronald Coase, who just had, I wanted to note just this little this theory that he was promoting, which was Coase theorem, which argues that the property rights can and negotiation can address externalities without government intervention. So an example of that being, you have two scenarios. In the main scenario, a factory emits smoke that damages nearby residents' health. So let's say the residents have the right to clean air, like they do. Yeah. The factory can negotiate with them and perhaps pay them to tolerate the pollution. And if the factory has the right to pollute, residents can negotiate with the factory paying it to reduce emissions. So that's sort of an example of how that will work. It's basically government doesn't regulate anything, and you guys are sort of just dealing with the big factory. So personhood to a river, not going to work with that theory.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, is that if a river is a person, then you got to negotiate with the river too.
Puts a stopper in that, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, and now we're just going to brush over some of the side characters. We have this man called Brad Lips, horrible name, CEO of Atlas.
Brad Lips.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And he has a quote that he's repeated, I think once or twice, and this greatly goes back to this guy Friedman from before. He says, "Only a crisis or actual perceived produces real change. When a crisis occurs, the action that takes depend blah blah blah." So he's saying essentially, you need to incite a crisis if you want to get shit done. So that's sort of his view on the world.
Wow.
You got Alan Gibbs, as mentioned before, your dad of Debbie, who was in the interview. Big businessman, very influential in New Zealand, and some people have dubbed him the godfather, of ACT. I've seen. You have Charles and David Koch, just Koch brothers, big libertarian think tanks. They're like your Mr. Burns type, essentially. Horrible. You have George Mason. This is allegedly where perhaps David Seymour may have gone. There's no confirmation of that.
Oh, is that Atlas University?
Yeah. It got direct involvement in Atlas with Atlas and Koch. So this has direct ties, and there's some of the alumni and key figures there, and just a couple of the other things highlighted: Veto Institute, Heritage Foundation, Heartland Institute, Taxpayers Union, and New Zealand Initiative. All right, we're going to skip over this, and we're now going to go to the timeline. I've now got two timelines just to make things easier, but this is sort of just going back to the basic origins of where this sort of all happened. So I decided to start with Standard Oil being broken up in 1911, founded by the Rockefellers. It was broken up into multiple divisions. Two of them became Exxon and Mobil, which remerged later in 99. You had a couple more of those, like Chevron got Kentucky and Texaco back. Amco merged with BP, so stuff like that. But it essentially sort of indicated a shift in the geopolitical consciousness at the time, at least. This guy, Ludwig von Mises, he was Hayek's teacher, this guy. So he basically, he was sort of just laid the groundwork for all sort of neoliberal thinkers to this day, essentially. He was a key figure in the Austrian School of Economics, and he bridged the gap, essentially, sort of between 19th century classical economics and 20th century revival free market economics. So he had a pivotal role to play there. Goes on to inspire... what's his name? Hayek to pursue his desires, I guess. Sorry, I've not heard
an agenda. I think there's an agenda. Yeah, that's the one.
Agenda. That's a better way to put it. All right. So then you have Fisher meets Hayek in 45. They'll go on to have a quite impactful relationship with each other. Who knows? Maybe there's, I think they might have really liked each other. Actually, I think there might be some tension there. They may have made love at one point, but though Hayek won't admit it. So,
friends to lovers,
Exactly.
I want to believe.
I do too. Yeah. Now the Mon Pelerin Society, or MPS, as I'm probably going to try and call it from here out. So Hayek founds it, invites Friedman, invites their mentors, and eventually Fisher gets in there as well. Anthony Fisher, the founder of Atlas, and essentially at some point he sends his boy Hayek sends Fisher out on a quest in his name, in his honor, to spread the good word of freedom and capitalism, and. They start doing that, and this is the first result of it is the Institute of Economic Affairs, which it's sort of your alpha atlas. It's your Atlas Alpha, essentially. This is in the UK. This started printing a whole lot of media promoting neoliberal thought and that kind of stuff. They were funded by big oil, BP, Shell, Exxon. Again, Coke. You're going to see those guys coming into
all
a lot of this.
All the time, I'm assuming.
Yep. If we have a chance later on, we might even peek at some of the works they published. But as I mentioned before, The Road to Serfdom, Hayek's sort of main, most well-known work was published through them. All right, and after that, you just get it just keeps going. You have Fisher going around the world promoting think tanks. They start opening just everywhere, and a part of this is because he's so dismayed by the welfare state as he was seeing it in the UK that was emerging at the time, and he wanted to combat that, particularly the civil rights movement and grassroots movement that were coming out of the 60s and 70s, all those social movements. They wanted to try and counteract that, and that this was their plan, was to open up all these think tanks. So then you get things like Fraser Institute in 74. Then you get in Australia, Institute of Independent Studies. Then you get some other ones in Netherlands, France, Germany. You get Venezuela and Brazil. Argentina keeps going, and then you get to 1988, where sort of an incident happens. So firstly, you've got this event called the Hansen testimony, which was essentially this guy. He said something like unfounded, which was like he's 99.99% sure that human pollution is affecting climate change and stuff. What that did was it prompted Exxon to release pretty much all the information they've been harboring over the last few decades or century, how long, and keeping from the public, because throughout the time they had been obviously not only researching all their effects on climate change but denying it simultaneously.
Of course.
Yeah. Exactly. Then you get some, and that starts going into counteraction movement after this, because the cat's out of the bag. You got to start fighting against it. So now you start getting this funding of all these climate denial people. Most notable being, at least for us, this man named Fred Singer. He did a tour around the 1990s, where I suppose he decided to go around and just start spreading the word of how. It's fine, guys. Just don't believe it.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. I always wondered why my mum believed that stuff when I was younger, and I mean, the dates line up now.
Yep.
That's 4 years before I was born, so.
Anyway, that gets to the end of that first timeline. So that's sort of the building of Atlas. I think I missed Atlas 81 was when Atlas was actually founded. I might have missed putting that one in, but thankfully I know the date because I've been living this for about 4 days. So next we get the rise of the drug trade. So this we'll go on to mention this, but this sort of started around the 1970s, and this would later on go to be more heavily impacted by a known event called, I guess Pinochet, or I believe it's pronounced Pinochet, and the Chicago Boys were mentioned before. Pinochet, there you go. And the Chicago Boys who went to Chicago University, as I mentioned before, under this man, Milton Friedman, who was who was bestie number 2. So bestie number 2 and his little underlings essentially helped. Well, I'm going a bit too ahead. So you had the President Salvador Allende, I think it was. He wanted to privatize U.S. mines and some Exxon and PB stuff that were in their country. Right. Pretty based. And they were going to do that. And then Pinochet did a coup, helped by, loving the economic freedom of these guys, right? Like, you guys want to do economics? And you said, nah, we're going to take over.
If I could just jump in with a little thing about Pinochet.
Yep.
The current hard right love mentioning Pinochet because one of the things that he did was abduct communist people and throw them out of helicopters.
What?
Pinochet.
I didn't have that in my research.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they used to do.
Timeline.
Communists. And that was just
that's
from a people's government, a left wing. Like it was a left wing government, not even like a hardcore communist government, but that was enough for him to get do a coup and start chucking people out of helicopters. That is still held up by some on the right in the States, especially on online spaces, as the cure for left-wing people is to throw them out of helicopters. Pinochet and Margaret Thatcher had a very close relationship as well.
Oh, you're getting ahead of me. You got to slow down. You got to slow down.
Okay. I only meant to mention the helicopters.
Yeah, history lessons resuming.
Anyway, that coup was supported by the Nixon administration, and later they had reforms that were funded by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. His regime lasted until 1990. We had, sorry, that's the chat popping up and distracting me.
All right, that was he.
So yeah, and the MPS, the Mont Pelerin Society was hosted by the regime in 1980. So there's a connection right there to Hayek and their little secret smoker club. They used economic policies that were designed by this group called the Chicago Boys that went to the university with Friedman. As I said, they implemented this technique that was known as shock therapy reforms. That's kind of like Rogernomics, and pretty much exactly Rogernomics, which went alongside, widespread human rights abuses, including disappearances, torture. Apparently, people getting thrown out of planes too. So essentially, GDP growth went up, but so did unemployment, inequality, civil unrest, all that stuff. Friedman did visit, again, the bald man here. Friedman did visit in 1975, and he wrote letters to Pinochet. He even had a direct response in regards to people criticizing his assistance. He said, "I do not consider it as evil for an economist to render technical economic advice to the Chilean government as I would for a physician to give technical medical advice to the Chilean government for a medical clerk." So there you go. He wasn't too bothered by helping this regime by the sounds of it. No remorse. Anyway, so yeah, going on just from that, actually a fun little fact, if anyone knows Breaking Bad, Gustavo Fring, sort of fan canon, ties him back to being a generalissimo in the Pinochet regime. And I'm not sure if that's Vince Gilligan trying to make some sort of social commentary on how neoliberal thinking would thrive in the drug trade, but I'm convinced it would. Like, why wouldn't it? It's exactly what they want, is an unregulated market. So I'm sure that thinking would just go great there. And that, of course, goes back to what I was saying before with the expansion of the rise of drug trade. All these, so Chile became a model for Latin American nations. They started sort of trying to imitate this stuff with pressure from IMF and World Bank. This went to countries like Bolivia, Argentina, Colombia, yada yada. And the privatization, security enforcements, laissez-faire markets, lack of opportunity, all this stuff just led to, inclusion of the North American Free Trade Agreement, all led to just conditions that made the drug trade thrive because people were desperate, I guess, more or less. So, of course, they're going to go towards these giant figures. Anyway. I had Friedman visited Pinochet, and then he responded. Then you get down to Thatcherism.
There she is.
Gonna brush over it. There she is.
This bitch.
Would you like to say anything?
I mean, I think that's
the more
what
I
you're
learn
into.
about Maggie Thatcher, the less I think she's a good person.
Yeah. She's kind of, actually, well, could we say that she was the original example of the worst human before her grandson David Seymour came onto the scene? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. She was like in the same time as Reagan.
When confronted with the problem that the coal miners were striking, her solution was to call out the army.
Fucking.
She is not a good dude.
Yeah, sounds like an absolute asshole.
Yeah, and look, in my opinion, this is the first domino in UK's ultimate sort of decline to where it is this day. It was the first chink in the armor, and look, Thatcher was influenced by Hayek, as we discussed before. The guy who wrote the Road to Serfdom, and the MPS, and Thatcher was famously presented a copy of Friedrich, so Bestie number 2. She slammed down like a copy allegedly in a board meeting with all her party members, and basically said, "This is what we believe now." It was The Constitution of Liberty was the book, and she just said, "This is what we believe. This is our philosophy." So quite wrote just copying the blatantly just said, look, we believe exactly what these neolibs and all these market free thinkers are sort of telling us. So straight from the horse's mouth, basically. Yep. And after that, of course, she goes on to just cut everything, privatize everything, slashes, like the British Oil, sells off their 51% share in British Petroleum, all that stuff. Just, not a good time. And then you go on to other administrations just in Venezuela. Venezuela was just sort of one of those cases where it was just whittled down by neoliberal forms, mainly from US foreign assistance, which basically paved the way for Hugo Chavez in the 1990s. You get Reaganomics. I mean, pretty much most people don't need an introduction to Reaganomics. However, what I think is more interesting about Reagan and Reaganomics is not only did they adopt many of Friedman's philosophies, Friedman served as an unofficial advisor during Reagan for his 1980 presidential campaign, and later became a member of the president's Economic Policy Advisory Board that throughout Reagan's tenure. So literally directly, he was directly involved. So one of the three key figures, literally right in the heart of Reagan's administration. Now we go on to Rogernomics and euthanasia, which I'm also going to probably gloss over a little bit. But did you want to touch on any of that, Chewie?
It's all going wrong in New Zealand at this point.
You lived through it, didn't you?
This is he was reading all of those people's homework. Like this is what stuns me. Like I remember when I told my wife, who's English, had at that point no grounding in New Zealand politics. And when I explained to her that the finance minister for a Labour government set all of this in motion and gave birth to ACT. It's just like, what? And I'm like, yeah. Roger Douglas. Like I think the spin-off had a piece the other day going over the private correspondence between David Longy and Roger Douglas, which was incredibly enlightening. That those two hated each other by the end of this and couldn't be in the same fucking room. Roger Douglas was a rat in the Labour Party and just painted people into a corner and straight up lied about what he was trying to achieve. The Labour government at that point didn't have a lot of choices, but Roger Douglas lied to them all to get his vision enacted.
And shout out just to Chewie Politics. He's got a very good video called The Entire History of the ACT Party. People go check that out, please. I did use that as a reference point. He's got one in the Māori Party too, which is also good. And one called What Has Peter Done, which I thought was just funny.
I love that.
Anyway, so as you can see, there's basically zero economic growth from 72 to 84. That was after, thanks to Thatcher. Well, not kind of thanks to Thatcher. I think she was actually maybe against it. But whilst Thatcher was there, they went into, they joined the EU. And essentially now the giant farm that is New Zealand doesn't have customer. So that led to, about a decade of pretty much zero economic growth. And the Treasury apparently allegedly completely sort of gave up on Muldoon. They couldn't even negotiate with him. So they anticipated his loss at next election, just started getting together an economic plan that they could get when Longy came in to help them. So it was that bad. Even the Treasury was like, screw this guy. We're not even going to try. I wish our Treasury did that now, but so things weren't efficient. I think famously, I like to reference the Margarine Act of 1908, which would put strict controls on the sale of margarine. You allegedly had to get a doctor's note to do that. This is all market policies, really, because we produced butter, so it was seen as, I guess, unpatriotic to get margarine. But so all these were autarkic policies that were pretty much the success of which can be evidenced by results of Nazi Germany, fascist Italy, Soviet Union and North Korea have all tried this same strategy. So Muldoon, it didn't work for him. NZ, I already said that bit about the NZ Treasury. We know what, and it cuts. That was the main thing that happened with all of Rogernomics. There were some key things that did sort of happen in between that time. The MPS Society had a conference in Christchurch in '88, which about 4 years after, I think, Douglas started. And Douglas the next year actually did a speech called The Politics of Successful Reform in MPS meeting in Australia. So more ties back to Hayek and the MPS Smokers Club. But Douglas actually wanted to go further and make more reforms after this, and this is where sort of Longy, I think, possibly, allegedly, I think from Helen Clark, she sort of says she egged him on a bit. He seemed to have sort of smelled the rigor mortis in the corpse that was rotting next to him. He rage quits, essentially. Longy rage quits because he gets rid of him, but then they bring him back. Parliament votes to somehow bring Rogers back. Somehow bring him back. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but then Longy rage quits. Rogers and Preble come back. Brash comes in out of this in the I'm blanking on the word. The Reserve Bank.
Right.
Yep. So that's where he sort of comes into this. He was appointed as head of that. Labour gets out. Euthanasia comes in. Roger Douglas rage quits in 1990. Preble rage quits, out of frustration from Labour. Then they go on to, make their little fun ACT club in 1999. And during this time, so this is from Rogernomics and throughout Rogernomics and Euthanasia, you had a wealth divide rise of about 120%, which is about an average of 14% per year. And GDP growth from 84 to 93 averaged around 0.5%, which is better than the nothing we had. But if you compare that to
0.5,
you compare that
insanely low.
Pretty much the same time frame, and the next administration, the Clark administration, they made about that it was something about 8 times as much, so 4% annual growth a year.
Yeah.
So the results a bit different, proofs in the pudding. I feel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all sounding very. I mean, like Chewie's pointed out before, that old this euthanasia and stuff is already being seen here. So just saying, I'm like, I see your date only ends at what, 1993, and we're already repeating this shit again.
Yeah.
Oh, it's never stopped.
Well, I mean, I guess, repeating is probably the wrong word.
Deja vu. I don't know.
Right.
But as we know,
I probably should hurry up a little bit because we are getting really close to 2 hours.
Yeah, no, I am trying to.
So let's start moving a little bit further forward so we can just. I'm sure we can do more of this another time if we have to.
Yeah, and as you know, all of what came out of that privatization, market liberalization, possibly other things. You have other dictators around the world. So you had Argentina with Carlos Menem. So you had some of the Eastern Bloc, which had the same thing with the whole shock therapy. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, people came like Hungary, Poland, tried to do shock therapy. Didn't, had mixed results, I suppose you could say. Then you have someone, this guy nicknamed Goni, who had, oh God, I lost my place. Look, he has ties. All these guys have ties. I will make this.
We can make this available too.
Exactly.
Available online. Yeah. Maybe even we can link to the reference article that I know, or document you've got there that I can already see.
the most succinct way to put this is, Argentina, Brazil, all these places, especially South America, has had a whole situation with the rise of neoliberal policies spreading out, and this all comes back to the Pinochet stuff with Chile. Yeah. Anyway, so that gets to sort of the conclusion of this, which is here it is. So firstly, we want to go, where's the Atlas connections? Well, I sort of got that all listed out here.
Yep.
as you can see, there's Roger Douglas has associations with NPS. You have similarities in the voice campaign with ACT Party's "End Race by the Vision," "End the Vision by Race" slogan. Seymour has called Atlas old friends. You have Alan Gibbs has direct ties to all the founders, has donated over $700,000. Jenny Gibbs, as Alan's wife, actively supports the neoliberal agenda, as we can see evidenced right here, and has been mentioned by some of the people in the community. Here are some of the donations they have made in only the last 2 years, all from Dame Jenny Gibbs. You have 100,000 there.
Isn't it amazing how much all of these people are willing to pay to avoid paying taxes?
Yeah.
Like
It's
almost I will spend my last dollar to make sure that nobody else gets any benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's the one thing they excel at is just hiding.
Well, I mean, they
their
made a whole
money.
union for that theory, Chewie. Basically, then.
Yep.
Now we got. So we also got TPU, which part of the Atlas network, accepts money from big tech and nicotine, all that kind of stuff. They publish, a shit lot of press releases. They host campaigns like Stop Three Waters. They criticized for using fake identity. I don't even remember doing that one, but apparently that was they have strong ties to National, with Chris Bishop's dad being a founding chairman, which I wasn't aware of.
Not surprised though.
Yep. So lots of things there. They effectively, and I saw someone sort of sum this up quite nicely, they effectively act as an arm of National ACT during the elections, conducting polls, advertising, speaking to media, etc., all without having to declare a source of their funding. So it's a very convenient relationship they have. Hobson's Pledge, probably people are curious about this. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, I believe also Nicola Willis was on the board of the New Zealand Initiative.
Oh, hell. Even with all the pages of research that Rogers did, and we're still missing people. That's how big.
As you're going to hear at the end, this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. I had so much left to do. Look, I've been doing this for 4 days, guys.
We're going to have to do a proper full deep dive one day for sure. Don't worry.
Yeah. Hobson's Pledge, no apparent connection, except Costello was a leader of the Hobson's Pledge Trust and chair of the Taxpayers Union, which I thought was notable, especially because we know she seems to take money from places. So New Zealand Initiative, which is a mix of the Business Roundtable and New Zealand Institute, that was Alan Gibbs again, and that was, I forgot to mention this, that was the Business Roundtable was a key influencer in Rogernomics, so that he was very much involved in that. And Euthanasia, I believe. And this just goes back to sort of a summary. Atlas in the broader context. Atlas was founded in 1981, who worked with Hayek and Friedman. Fisher's work directly led to tanks in Australia and New Zealand, influencing policies like Rogernomics, privatization, cuts to subsidies, alignment with the NPS principles. And Atlas-affiliated organizations also come to promote climate skepticism, deregulation, anti-government narratives globally. So that was sort of my summary of all of what I've just done there. And that brings us to sort of the final tit of it. We're right at the end, the home stretch.
Hell yeah!
Why am I doing this?
Oh, you're doing good. Don't think you're doing good.
So we come back to the video, the Q&A puff piece from earlier. And it turns out they did a thing a year before that called Trick or Treaty. What this happened, we received complaints from Mr. Brad Lips, the current Atlas chair, who actually opened a media cancel complaint. Yes. Where God. Yes, he was not happy with their representation. It was specifically, as you guys will remember, Dr. Walker. He came on to talk about Atlas about a month ago. A lot of this work is thanks to him as well. He's very much a pivotal figure in all this. They disputed a claim that he made, and I quote, "One thing that is consistent across all these Atlas network think tanks is that they will oppose anything that gets in the way of the fossil fuel industry, whether climate is policy or indigenous land rights, where does climate is policy or indigenous land rights." Yeah, so he didn't like that statement, and they went on to have these key disputes. So they dispute that statement by Mr. Walker. Atlas is not a partner of Advance Australia. As far as I can tell, that is true. That's just straight up true. Atlas Network does not receive funding from oil, gas companies and oil, gas, blah, 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 blah. As we've seen, they're literally founded on the basis of gas money. That's literally their origin. It's literally in their blood. It's intertwined. You can't deny that. Like,
you can't take the two from each other. Yeah.
No. Yeah, so you two are one. You cannot separate. The Atlas Network does not oppose climate policy or indigenous land rights. Again, that goes just direct Atlas partners like IPA and Liberty Works have been linked to campaigns against climate policies as well. And then you have the Atlas Network did not have a role in the voice debate and did not have a coordinating role during the campaign, which I think is even more blatantly like, again, the IPA in Australia have been directly linked to campaigns against the voice, and they are direct affiliates associated with Atlas.
They didn't have a role. They just had their fingers in every fucking little thing. Yeah. It's different. Clearly,
there's an Excel sheet you can get because Atlas used to list their partners on the website. They've deleted it now. So you can yeah, but that's how we know about a lot of these because they list on their own website, and just using the Wayback Machine, you can see like who they listed. Yeah. Anyway, so the initial I didn't spell questions right. The initial questions. So what is Atlas? Why the puff piece? I think we've answered those two pretty well. Why the puff piece is literally their entire complaint was, why did you not come to us? So when Q&A went to do, I think when Debbie mentioned it on Q&A, they were like, oh shit, we got to cover this. So we don't get another complaint. So I think that's why that exists. Are they shadowy? From everything I can see, yeah, they're a pretty shadowy organization, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Their timeline was far too big.
Yeah, I know. And do they fund political activity? Oh, yeah. And do they fund political activity? Well, I just said Mummy and Daddy definitely do. So whether or not she wants to say, oh, I don't. Well, your parents do. So, sorry, I'm banging the table with my mic. So I'm just trying to draw some conclusions here, but we'll sort of just skip over them. But it's essentially saying what I've already said.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of we can probably all see where those lines point to, and
yes.
I mean, to be fair, I think I mean, I know you and I have been talking about this for a long time, and holy shit.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my speed run of all that information that I've sort of done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll just pull it down.
And I've yet to cover Marsden Point and CAF's Africa, the shit they're doing in Africa. There's so much going on in Africa. I would love to touch Africa. And what I've dubbed the cult of Atlas, because honestly, you brought up Nixium earlier. So much of this reminds me of Nixium.
Yeah, I'm not even surprised, to be honest. And I mean, actually, you go, Chew.
I was just going to say that presentation was like, oh my God, holy shit levels. Wow.
Welcome to Friday, boy.
Wow. I am impressed. They're very, very good.
I also think you'll like this joke, guys. Gas money funds gaslighters. Also, Peter Syme corrected me that they're not a union. And I mean, yeah, TPU, like, they use pretty... Also, we got to thank you for a beautiful, beautiful timeline. Because
thank you. And just on that, I would like to thank, again, Tui Politics, the now deleted user Mountain Tui from NZ Politics, and this great video. Everyone should go watch it, called Atlas, the Atlas Network, that was hosted by Western Australian Green Senator Scott London, Senator Jeremy Walker, Dr. Jeremy Walker, and some of the other people that were.
Send me the links and we'll put them into the chat. But yeah, like, I knew you were gonna do a good job, but fuck, man, you just went.
One more thing.
Right,
and I got
go
this.
on.
I was just because I was looking for money. I was looking at the money, right? And I was just trying to find the money. And I just noticed something. And here's the financial statements from Labour. So you'll see this from 2023. You'll see the Green parties. Look at that.
Yeah.
Surely National's going to be shit. Oh, no, National's pretty damn good. In fact, this is the biggest. Look at that. Here's ACT. That's it. 2
It
pages.
looks like
not
my
even
bank
full.
statement when I get it in the mail. What are you talking about?
The minimal amount that they can declare they have done. There's
fucking shady. What the hell?
And that's the only thing they can do. The only thing these guys can do is hide the money, because they cannot hide all their connections. That's the thing I've sort of learned here.
No, and I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is absolute insanity. Fuck. Anything else you want to say on that?
No, that's it.
No. I just want to loop back to the helicopters and Pinochet thing. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, that is wow.
That's the sort of stuff that is circulating in Proud Boys. That sort of thing.
And if anyone wants to know how fresh this stuff is in terms of psychology, Nancy McLean, in that video that I referenced before, the Atlas Network, she says there's no apparent concept in social science of this, so it's all developing theories. So there's not even a social science concept for what Atlas is doing right now.
So what you were saying is that all this research that and beautiful study that you've just done is groundbreaking? And it's something that we don't even have a name for.
No, it's stolen work. I stole this from everyone else.
Oh yeah, but it's still,
like every
still
great
on
inventor. Yeah. Like every great inventor, I'm just stealing from people. So
still, it's good to actually be talking about it though. And honestly, like, also I love this one here. If I believe all of this, will Rimmer call me a conspiracist? Yes, of course he's going to.
100%.
Because otherwise, actually, I've got a meme for this. Hold on, we'll skip through them. I got a meme for this, guys. It's really small, and I'm really sorry. I'll fix my memes next time, but it's a conspiracy. The government took down the Parliament website on purpose. Actually, it's just routine underfunding of essential infrastructure. Government underfunding of essential infrastructure is a literal conspiracy between government and big business. And if we apply that to this, the meme still fits. And also, fun fact, I learned that the term conspiracy theorist was actually coined by the CIA. That seems fucking convenient. But that's a different rabbit hole that I'll go down on another Friday.
The rabbit holes are coming.
The holes were deep, and that Atlas hole was fucking huge. So thank you. We'll quickly get to some the super chats, and obviously, Chewie, if you do need to run, feel free to fuck off. We have kept you a really long time.
Yes, I am going to go.
Yes, go to bed. Go to bed. Guys. But thank you for looking it up.
Thanks, Chewie.
Fantastic work, man.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Oh, yes, we kept Unc way too late, and I'll have to message his wife and apologize for keeping him
I
up
told you I
bedtime.
can gab. Like,
oh, dude, so can I. That's the whole point why we're here. But we'll get to some quick super chats. XL Deer for $5. Legalize it. Tax it. Problem solved. Land of the long white green cloud. Thank you so much for the super chat. Also love the pun. Kiwi Burb for $2. Atlas is the evil version of Greenpeace. That is so accurate. Holy shit. We got Peter Syme for $5. People of the same trade seldom meet together, even for merriment and diversion, but the conversation ends in a conspiracy against the public. Adam Smith. And that was at 10:42, and I can't remember exactly where we were at that point, but what else do we have? We got a request. Damn, Rogers, your first episode, and you're already getting requests now.
Oh,
so
my
goodness. Kahununu 007 for $8.99. Thank you very much. Can Detective Rogers do a prezzo on dismantling capitalism? And I mean, like, I'm sure there might be something that we can work on in the background of for some future stuff. I'm sure. I'm sure if Ems has to go anywhere, we can bring. I'm sure people would love to have you back after this presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
And then we've got Starfight for $5 saying, last I saw a return like that, it was out of 55 Tufted Street. And I'm so sorry that I do not get the reference. But thank you for the super chat.
I love it.
Yeah, so
I mean,
jokes. And let's just what else do I have? I got any other memes? Oh yeah, this was funny. This is just a little picture of someone put the Elon Musk books on the other side of a book called Surrounded by Idiots. And it just gave me a little giggle. Just gave me a wee giggle. And then this I saw on Instagram, dying from thirst in 2038 because my Neuralink blocked hydrating due to me not being a Nestle Water Plus subscriber. And actually, this kind of goes back to what I was saying to Ems during the week of like, fuck having a smart house. Like, fuck having a smart house. But also, because I wanted to end on something a bit more positive, since we didn't get to the positive news this week. Sorry, guys. You got a really deep hole instead. But here's a common scam going that everybody needs to know. So PSA, sometimes cats will meow at you when they haven't been fed. But in fact, someone did feed them and they're just trying to get fed again. So stay alert. That's a very important PSA that we should just make sure that we end on. I'll also...
just one more thing. The door as well. Every time they go out, they just want to come right back in. So don't believe them.
Oh yeah. No, they're scam artists, those cats. And I have always said that, and I will always continue to say that. Like, the amount of times my cat screams at me trying to act like she hasn't been fed when I know for a fact I'm the one that fed her is just absolutely insane. Also, a reminder to everyone that if you want to get stickers, they're still available on BHN Shop. And obviously, if you would like to support the podcast, we have a Patreon. Because I haven't done the Patreon plug today. But I won't show you guys. You know what it looks like. And if you don't know what it looks like, just type in, go to BHN Shop, go get you some stickers, go put them everywhere. Go sign up to the Patreon because obviously that helps us a lot. And Dad's getting married. He's got he's got kids to support now that me and Ems and I guess potential other child are here. So, help us out, spread the word. And yeah, I think that is us for the night. Obviously, thank you so much, Rogers. I'm so stoked we got to do this, honestly. I was very excited to do this with you. And I know Ems was very excited to have you as her replacement. And it seems like everybody else has enjoyed having you here.
I'm just happy I got it done and I didn't screw it up major. So
you did an amazing job and everyone's loved it. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we've kept everyone late enough, so we better get the fuck out of here. But obviously, thank you so much, everyone, for coming back to the first episode of Bright Hearing News for 2025. I am so excited to see what happens this year. I was going to do a bunch of stuff extra for the community, but you know what? I'm going to leave that for next week. But a little bit of inside knowledge, I'm going to be making a Google form for all of you to submit your predictions for 2025 so that when me and Ems do our last episode for the year, we're going to see whose predictions were correct. And that could be political, it could be local. We're just going to set up a little game for us to play over the year. So, yeah. But other than that, we better get these credits playing.
Help us settle a debate. Of hate, it's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work at what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All heavily, neither this way or that, and we'll be analyzed by what Chewie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed.
Thanks everyone for joining us on the first Bright Hearing News back. Well, it was actually a big Heary and a Bright Hearing News today, so
we don't know what this was.
For joining us. This was insane and long and crazy, but That's what she said, and she liked it. So thank you so much for joining us. And obviously, thank you again, Rogers. Is there anything you want to leave the fans with?
Thank you for having me, everyone, and we will make these resources available.
Yes. I'll make sure I'll put some posts out on Blue Sky, and we'll find some way to get this out there, and I'm sure it'll go on the Discord. So a reminder about the Discord too, if you want to come join. And I think that's us for now, eh? So with that, thank you everyone, and have a beautiful evening, and stay safe, all right? Because we need you back here on Monday with our boys for another episode of Victory News. Keep cool till after school, everyone. Bye.